Hey family, I'll wait till some of y'all come in the room. Getting on later than usual. Hello, hello. I need some music. Getting on later than usual. I was supposed to be joined by a guest. I'm not sure if he's gonna be able to join. But I'm gonna go ahead and get started in about 2 minutes or so. How's your day going? I need some music. We just gonna get started. So tonight's conversation is the teen to adult struggle. Some of this is gonna touch on mental health. So I know that everybody's been in the yes, glory. I know that everybody has been going through their own issues, especially with the pandemic and all of those different things. A lot of people have fallen into depression, and it's just a really tough time. Well, prior to the pandemic, people were having the same struggles. The pandemic kind of heightened that. Considering the fact that people were losing loved ones, everybody was in the house, people lost jobs and things like that. So it kind of made it more stressful. But what we're really going to talk about is we look at ourselves and we know what's going on with ourselves as far as, our mental health. We know when things are changing, how our moods change. Sometimes we may not pinpoint it all the way, but we know what is going on with us and we can articulate that. But a lot of times teenagers cannot articulate that. They don't know what's really going on with them. They're going through things for the first time. Everything is a new experience. A lot of us have experienced those things already. So we got a grip on certain things that they don't. So a lot of times we forget that we were once teens, that we had to figure our lives out, that we went through the awkward periods. We care more about our friends and our peers than we did our parents, because they weren't talking about nothing, to us. We struggled to find our identities, whether it was, us trying to figure out how to be our own person aside from the person that our parents wanted us to be. Sometimes, it was based on our clothes or, the latest Jordans, or creating a new personality. Some became honor students, some were athletes, but whatever the case may be, everyone found their own identities, and it started prior to high school, actually, if we really think about it. So, a lot of the things that we also dealt with was peer pressure, peer acceptance, And so we thought that our parents didn't understand anything, and a lot of them didn't talk to us about what, they went through in their own journeys in junior high and high school, and how awkward it really was. And hey, everybody. Right. So today we're talking about the teen to adult struggle, and we're going to tap on mental health. So that's what I'm talking about right now. And so what I was saying was basically that sometimes we as adults forget that we were once teens, and we went through our own stages and phases of trying to figure out who we are and what we wanted. We experienced different pressures, whether it was peer pressure, peer acceptance, figuring out how to balance school. Some of us worked, some of us were in other activities and things like that. So trying to figure out that balance, and then who we are, what we wanted to become. So that actually put a lot of pressure on us. And we don't even think about that kind of stuff now because it's so far beyond us. But teenagers that are in our lives go through that every day. And it's to the point where a lot of them are contemplating suicide. Some have taken their lives and things like that. And so this is just an open dialogue, whether or not you want to share your own experience. I actually had somebody that was going to come on. I'm not sure if the gentleman is going to join us. That's kind of why I'm late, because I was trying to wait until he would be able to, but not quite sure. So I just decided to go on anyway. So that is the topic. The floor is open for any statements, any questions, anything that you all would like to address as far as that's concerned. But back to what I was saying, all in all of those things were our experiences in just trying to figure out our identities separate from our parents. So we, as many of us are parents. I have taken care of a kid that actually was not my own, but so he looks at me like a parent. But aunts, uncles, grandparents, mentors, teachers, all of us collectively have an active role in a child's life somewhere. And so we need to just think about our own struggles, our own things, and then just talk to them. A lot of times teenagers will talk to teachers before they even talk to their parents. I know from my own experience, sometimes it's easier to talk to a teacher versus talking to a parent, in fear of being looked at as immature or not able to handle certain things. You kind of want to handle things on your own when you become a teenager. So there's just a lot of things that we need to look at as a community, and I'm making this a community conversation because we don't really realize how our teenagers are struggling with their own mental health. Like I was saying when I first got started, that we can recognize when something's not right with us. We understand when things are not stable, especially throughout this pandemic. We understood what we were facing, but a lot of us did not pay attention to what the kids were dealing with or what the teenagers were dealing with. And actually these things started prior to the pandemic. The pandemic just heightened them. So we just want to touch on just a little bit about just navigating certain issues, and you all can leave any comments that you want. I actually, like I was saying before, okay. Well, if he wants to come on, he can come on. If you all want to request to come on, you can. The floor is open. This is just an open dialogue, and I'm not gonna take a lot of your time, but I actually had someone that was supposed to be coming on and sharing some experiences, but I don't think he's going to make it. So I'm just going on without him. I'm actually reading this comment. Yeah, if he wants to come on, then he can. That's no problem. So backtracking to what I was saying, a lot of us deal with our own struggles, and we forget that teenagers are experiencing these things for the first time. So we are removed from that world, and all of those things that they are dealing with now, that's their whole entire world. Think about when we were in high school, that was our whole entire world. Everything that we experienced, it was just like, oh my gosh, if such and such doesn't like me, like the whole world is just going to stop and it's going to come to an end. We couldn't see that this is only temporary. We couldn't see that part. We only saw that was our world. So a lot of times we tell them like, oh, you're going to get through this, or we tell them it's not a big deal. But we actually need to pay attention, because these things are very vital to their mental health. A lot of them are taking these things and internalizing them, and then they are, taking their lives or contemplating. So what I pulled up was a statistics by the CDC that actually states that about 3 in 4 children aged 3 to 17 years old deal with depression and also anxiety, which makes up about 78.8%. And out of those, 1 in 2 have behavior problems. And so I don't want to talk about the behavior issues. We're just talking about the depression part of it. And then the same age group, they deal with anxiety. 1 in 3, they're saying, also has behavior problems, which makes up about 37.9%. And they also deal with depression, which is 32.3%. So like I said, we're not going to touch on the behavior part, but we're just going to talk about the mental health part. So I know that there are not probably any children on here, but I do want this conversation to be for them, especially the teenagers, to let them know that when they are dealing with whatever the issues are, to talk to an adult if they feel like it's a lot of pressure, if they're dealing with just different things in school that they are uncertain about, even with friends. It's best that they talk to an adult, and some of us have to learn how to keep the line of communication open so that they feel comfortable to do that. So I want to stress to the teenagers that your parents are not the enemy. They don't go to school with you. They're not totally aware of what's happening now, but remember that they were once where you were. And I know that some things we haven't experienced, like the social media age, which really heightens certain things. So like when rumors got started, when we were in school, when you got to school, the rumor was starting. But like now, the rumor started before you got to school. It's on social media. It stays up there, and it's there for however long the person decides to keep it up there. Now you have other people that have seen it. So now their situation is more heightened than ours is, because other people are able to see this outside of just the people that go to school with them. So now they're getting inbox messages, from people that hate them, or say that they hate them, or just different things. Even at text messages, we didn't even have text messages. So these things are completely heightened now, and they're actually something that we all have to pay attention to, because raising a child is a community effort, whether or not people like to believe so. It really is, and it takes all of us to help them. So, but I wanted to let those teenagers know that are out there, how, if you let them look at this video, to use your parents as a resource, especially when you're dealing with something that is really, really tough. Like, do not look at it like the end of the world. Go to your parents, because that's exactly what they're there for. And you have to tell them, even if it's not a parent, tell a teacher, an adult, because a lot of times we have gone through the same struggles, the same issues, and we are better equipped to handle those things. If not, there are other resources that you can turn to, like the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline. And that one is, the number for that is 1-800-273-TALK. Then there's a crisis text line, and you just text hello to 741-741. So reach out to someone. You're not in this alone. And that was what, I really wanted to touch on, because there are a lot of teenagers that are dealing with a lot of different issues, and they are not telling anyone because they feel like they don't want to be treated like a child. They might be embarrassed. They're trying to navigate it on their own because they're trying to be adults, even though they're not adults yet. And just think about it. We went through the same thing. So yeah, pushing love and encouragement for them is very key. And they need to feel like they have that support system. So that was what, tonight's conversation was about. I wanted other people to share maybe their own personal experiences navigating maybe high school, just to give more context to what I'm saying, and to know that they are supported. They're not in this alone. Knowing that they are able to go through or go to someone while they're going through. So nobody's really making any comments. Nobody wanted to come on and share any of their experiences. No. Okay. So I'm just going to keep going. So another thing is, those children need to feel safe. Anytime a child is dealing with, and children are fragile, we know from the jump, they're fragile and they still want to assert their independence. So a lot of times they just try to handle everything, but they need to feel safe. And that's the number one, I think that's the number one reason why they don't come directly to their parents, because they feel like they will be judged. They want to know that they're not going to get in trouble, type of a situation. They want to know that if I tell you this, I'm not going to get a whooping, or I'm not going to be on punishment, but this is what happened. I actually, and even dealing with issues on sex, a lot of times children won't go to their parents about that. They'll go to their friends, which was something we talked about last week. Just talking about whatever the issues are, they need to feel safe enough to open up so that they're not navigating these things by themselves. And so I wanted it to be just the open conversation about that, and helping them to deal with the stresses of the world. So we're talking about mental health, and and we were touching upon like just the different things that the youth deal with. So teenagers, what they deal with when it comes to high school acceptance, the peer pressure, and different things of that nature tacked on to the fact that they have to maintain schoolwork. Some of them may be working. They're trying to just navigate just a whole lot of things, and everything in their world is heightened for them because they're experiencing it for the first time. So us as adults, we've already been through it. And we can be resources for them. So I kind of I actually had a guest that was supposed to come on and talk, but he's not coming on today. But the show must go on because this was something that needed to really be discussed. You said also facing embarrassment, they have to have confidence. Yes, and that is one of the things that I think really needs to be instilled is the confidence, especially at a young age. I posted a video of Erica Campbell basically encouraging her daughter to pursue her dreams, and I think that that's one of the things that children really need at a small age, because once a parent validates those things, it helps them to be more confident when they go to school and when they go out into the world. The parents are their first teacher, their first boost of confidence, their first everything. So in the parent actually putting that into them and encouraging them with everything, if it's that handprint that they painted on, or if they say they want to be an artist or a musician or a basketball player, just cultivating those different things that they want, which will help boost their confidence, is something that's very necessary. But not only that, once you do that and open that door for them to come to you and talk to you about certain things, then once they're older, they will do the same thing. I'm not going to say for every single issue, because you know what? I was not thinking about hosting a forum for teens, but I think that that's something that needs to happen, so that we understand how we can better serve them, because it's a lot of things that we may not even know about that they're struggling with. I know in our day, since now many of us are in our 30s, to them we're old. So when we were in high school, like I was saying, the peer acceptance, the peer pressure, you had teenage pregnancy, you had drugs, you had gangs, you had all of these different things that everybody was like trying to navigate on their own. Okay, I'm gonna let you on. Hello.
How you doing?
Good, how are you?
I'm just fine, thank you. Pleasure to meet you.
Same here.
So I'm hearing some of the conversation and stuff like that. So, just a couple of things. One, I do social work. Right now, I've done individual and group therapy before. Actually, I still do some group therapy now.
Okay.
With kids in a hip hop type of forum. Um, and I'm hearing the conversation. I thank Lorenz for inviting me to see. I won't be able to stay on, but I'm interested. So because mental health is something that is really important for our young people. So I guess really I'm thinking about as you're saying this, what strategies or what approach would you like to take, with the young people? What has been your experience, because I'm kind of hearing what you're saying, especially in this day and time with everything going on, at least something crazy going on once a day, in the kids' lives. um, I guess really the first thing is like, what have kids been really kind of like coming to you with, and then what have you been observing?
So the situations are usually about of the opposite sex. That's the
Okay.
majority of the situations. Um, it hasn't gotten to a point where they are talking about like committing suicide, but I've heard other parents say that their child has thought about it or talked about it. But for the most part, it's navigating the opposite sex, um, dealing with, their friends and friends that are dibbling and dabbling in sex and how, they don't know if they can hang out with this person because they're doing this and they know that they're not supposed to be doing this. So those are the conversations that I have had. So what you've probably experienced is deeper than that, but that's pretty much the gist of those conversations.
It's not so much deeper at all. Actually, the one thing about kids, unless there's a trauma side of it, if they witness something, or if they've been a victim themselves, 9 times out of 10, it's a lot of developmental pieces that the
Mhm.
kids have. So so like you said, so if we think about childhood development just in general. So of course, you got your infant stage, you got your stage from I guess really kindergarten to first grade. But I'm just being in general about it without thinking about the social scientists and stuff like that. But usually when they're coming around to this teenage piece, it's physical as well as emotional development that's all going and playing a part too. So it's not just I'm interested in the opposite sex, but there's physically things that are going on
Mhm.
with me that sometimes might seem like a discomfort because parents do seem to be a little off, and it's not that they're off, it's that parents are also living life too, and so some of the things, it's really funny that you said some of the things about dating because one of the situations that actually happened with a young person I was working with was that he really kind of crossed the boundary that he shouldn't have, you know, um, at my particular place of employment, and and really trying to get him to understand that you can have crushes on people, you can have this and the other, but sometimes your healthy boundaries, have to say when you can say when and who you can say what to, and just kind of like putting those spaces in. But I know that one of the techniques that I use to kind of like help him feel comfortable talking, for instance, because I'm very aware of my adultism.
Mhm.
I'm very aware. Let's put it this way, because it feels like I'm talking in the class. I'm very aware that I have a great beard. so so when a
So
kid sees me,
they think you can't relate.
yeah, so a kid sees me, man, yeah, man, and or I might get the homina, you don't understand and stuff like that, and it's like,
Mhm.
bro, I understand a lot more than you think or give me credit for. But I think it's also creating that space to be authentic as an adult too, because the one thing that we tend to forget when we're approaching kids when it comes to mental health is that kids have a very acute, and I'm not sure if this is the forum for it, but I'm not going to swear either. But kids have a very acute BS meter. So if you're really not coming and being your most authentic self, they smell that, they read
Mhm.
that, and they're going to turn around and give you some boundary spaces, give you some boundaries, and make you kind of like chase to figure out what's going on. So the
Mhm.
best thing you can do is be your most authentic self. And so with this particular young person, I realized that, for instance, sometimes we might do little things that might not create the space that we intend. So as I was talking to him about his situation, I realized I had the table across from me. And so from there, that looks like, a dominant position. It looks like I'm being the teacher and he's being the student versus we're having a conversation to try to fix whatever's going on. And I literally said it out loud. I said, hey, man, I'm sitting across here. I feel like a judge, talking to a defendant. Let me come
Mhm.
around here and sit and talk next to you. And just kind of like hurdle helped him with, some of the conversation. Hey, listen, bro, when you do this, what does this mean? I don't know, but you can be 100 with me. Let's talk. This ain't about you trying to get in trouble or something like that because I can relate. And I think that we had another teacher in the room. And one of the things that I said is like, okay, let's dispel some myths here. People have crushes. People, we've all had crushes on people. It's what we do to react to them that makes all the
Mm-hmm.
difference in terms of how, what type of response we get. And being able to do that, he was able to kind of like dial it down a little bit and be a little bit more transparent about what he was dealing with. But again, that's just one case. A lot of times, even with my own children, it comes down to how do I make sure that I open the door for that communication? That's really something that adults, on our end, we really have to be mindful, in those spaces and practicing. So, and with me coming up and not having a dad in the home, that was one role model that I did not have. So I had to kind of use my uncles and everybody else to kind of figure it out. But once I did, I really tried to take some of those lessons. But part of those lessons were also being able to critically listen and critically hear what, my child was saying.
Mm-hmm.
And I've taken those, and in that, taking some of those lessons with, other teenagers that I've worked with and things of that nature. So, um, I'm sorry, sound like you're about to say something.
Oh no, continue, and then I'll ask.
No, but no, but that's but don't get but the one thing that was really funny was that just because I do this work doesn't mean or just because clinicians do this work doesn't mean that they have the end all be all answers. It's almost like the PK or preacher's kid or something like that. Just because you're a minister don't mean that your family's safe. So it's like you've got to. It means that you still got work to do, and so it wasn't a given. But I know with my kids, what I did was I made sure that they kept the door open because I had one of my sons that I was talking with, and we really just had really a deep, hardcore conversation. And after the conversation, I said, "Son, feel free to be able to talk with me. So you feel comfortable?" And my son said, "No." I said, "What?" I said, "What? Who does this?" I gave you all the skills and training. What you mean? And what ended up happening was that instead of getting into my feelings, because that's sometimes what the adultism part
Mm-hmm.
happens too, because it's like, well, I tried to talk to them, but then they didn't want to
Mm-hmm.
talk, so I just let them go ahead and do what they do.
Yeah.
No, instead I said, okay, check it out. I get it. You're not ready to talk to me like that, and I also understand the dynamic too, because I'm your dad. So so when you have a moment, when you're ready, you let me know when you want to come and talk. And what I did was I gave him the space. Every once in a while, checking it. Hey, man, don't forget, anything you want to talk. So the hilarity of life is that, and also with kids is that kids pick the darndest times when they want to talk. So of
Mm-hmm.
course, just for example's sake, this particular day was going on. The NBA Finals was this, that, and the other. Hey, Dad, I want to talk now. Man, wait a minute, don't, hey, bro, and at that moment it's like, well, I guess I'm ready. And actually, I wasn't necessarily in this particular instance. I wasn't necessarily ready for the conversation either. So it's like, okay, well, you better get your gear up,
Mm-hmm.
because he came with it, and that was kind of cool. But no, I'm sorry. Go ahead. What was the
I actually
question that you
like
were
that you
thinking of?
touched on that you left the door open to when he was ready. And that's a lot of times what we don't do. We try to pressure them to actually say something at that exact moment, and then they feel like, well, I don't want to talk about it, so I'm just not going to say nothing. And then the conversation is over, and they're not going to come back and revisit it because you've put too much pressure on them to give you an answer as to whatever it is that you're trying to get out of them. So I like that you said that you left the door open for when he was ready. And I think that that's one of the things that is necessary so that they feel ready. Because I know from my own experience, I've dealt with some things, and I wasn't going to even talk about my own stuff, but
Mm-hmm.
um, I went through some things, and I didn't talk to my parents because there was no, think about it, the 90s, there was none of this happening. Like, there was no conversations being had. It was like, you're a kid, that's it. There was nothing else to talk about. So
Oh, seen and I heard.
um
Yeah.
and coming from that, I think that even being, because I was a teacher for 7 years, and dealing with those students, a lot of them will tell me stuff before they go tell their parents, and I'm looking like, you at home with your parents? Why are you telling me this?
And so, and you know, and that goes to one of the things too, because you have no judgment. So a parent has, sometimes a parent, even if they're not trying to have it, sometimes they have judgmental eyes because the dynamic is that naturally you want to please your parents.
Mm-hmm.
So if you turn around and tell them something that's going to disappoint them, are you really, they're not thinking about the fact that, you know, this person is here to help me. They're thinking about the fact that I don't want to disappoint my mom and dad. You know,
Mm-hmm.
if I turn around and tell them that, you know what, this boy got more than first base with me, you know, how do I turn around and have that
That's very true.
conversation? You know, so the thing is that we got to, you know, normalize, kind of like normalize the fact that life happens and growth happens, you know, and being able to do it in a way that is protective and not judgmental. Not protective and judgmental is two different things.
Mm-hmm.
Listen, baby, I want you to kind of like really think about, you know, who you're hanging with, you know, versus you're going to be a this, that, and the other and get your name out there, blah, 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 blah. If you turn around and do this, well, hey, my dad been telling me all that time. You think I'm about to sit up here and tell him that, you know, this boy's out of here and touching on me, you know, so no. Or the whole thing of, and I think I heard you earlier talking about it too, around, you know, the teenage years, you know, their affirmations do come from their peer, you know, their circle of involvement.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, hey, listen, these kids, you know what? And I make the joke to some of my kids. It's like I can sit up here and tell you all day, for instance, that or I can sit and say, hey man, that outfit really doesn't look good on you, man. You know, there's no drip to what you're wearing. The kid will look at me like, Dad, what you talking about, man? You don't know this, that, and the other. You know, another kid will turn around and say, hey man, you need to change those shoes, man. That's not what's happening. And all of a sudden it's like, oh, epiphany. I can't. Dad, why you gonna let me go out bogus like that? It's like, whoa, wait, hold on.
Just said the same thing.
You just say, yeah. But that is the circle of influence, and that's kind of like how it works. So one of the things that I've also learned how to do is, at least in you know, when I work with youth, it's like I've let them be the expert on who they are. You know, so it's like, hey, you know best how you work with certain things, and even when I talk with the kids, because so since you were a teacher, so I do social emotional learning classes too, or I'll run those, and one of the things that I tell them so they can understand that it's not from a place of judgment, because of course if kids feel as though you're giving them something, you forced me to take this. Nope, I'm giving you, no, you have a toolbox, and here's what's going to happen. You're going to add tools as much as you need it. I said, because what happens in life is that all we walk around with is a hammer, and we think that we can use a hammer to fix everything. And the truth is that we can't. You know, so if your sink is broke, you can't use a hammer to as a wrench. You can't. You know, so only thing I'm doing is offer you other tools. You use them as you see fit.
Mm-hmm.
And once they understand the concept that you're just really putting or dropping knowledge, you know, for them to kind of glean upon, then, you know, we can kind of like have a conversation about that, you know, but that comes down to a couple of other factors too, like trust.
Sure. That's what I was just about to say. Trust.
You know, so how do I trust that, you know, that you have my best interest and stuff like that. And at the end of the day, you know, kids just really want to be safe, but it's really understanding kind of like how to have those conversations, and how to step out of our own way. You know, nobody's asking you to be a best friend to your kid or something like that, even though sometimes that happens. But what we are saying is like find a way that works with them, you know, and connecting and just giving it that space, or giving them breadcrumbs. So if they can turn around and ask for help or make sense of something, let's turn around and make sense of it. Let's have that conversation, you know.
So were you the one that was talking about a forum, like having a teen forum?
Yeah, and of course, well, I was asking if that would be something that you would be interested in, because the part of me, the adult isn't part of it. I never want to be, so I guess let me go back. Yes, I was the person that said that,
Okay.
but I also too, I never want to be that person that feels as though I'm telling you what's going on with you when I haven't lived your life, you know, and so it's important to have the empathy part. So it's like, hey, listen, in this team forum, well, you guys tell us what's really going on with you, you know, and then and because really, now things are somewhat drastically different with the advent of social media and with the advent of cell phones. You know, there is a different level of stress. I mean,
Hmm.
so as my great beard would say, if I got into it with somebody at my school, I can walk home and
Yep.
not
And
see
that's what I was saying
that.
in the
Yeah,
beginning. You wouldn't
yeah,
find out to the next day when you got to
yeah.
school, but now it starts as soon as as late as 7 p.m. and going all the way to how many ever months, because they can put it on social media. They can tag a person in it. They can
Oh,
text. So everything is still there. It's like it don't
yeah.
go nowhere. So
Oh,
theirs is totally on another level.
that tagging is real. I cannot even almost disrupted one of our grade levels because these kids would go home and just get on just low key. And here's the funny part: for adults, the way that it looks, we can sit and say it. It's like, man, they fighting over a game. They fighting over who could win this game and something like that. Who's the best player? But what happens is that then the other contextual layers come in. Now, I'm gonna let you know that I'm not gonna be disrespected. So I'm really gonna call you out a name that not even adults say.
Hmm.
And that's because of the that's also part and tell, not totally, but that's part and tell of having access to so much stuff. And it looks like, oh man, I can say that, man. It's cool. It's out there in social media. So apparently it can be said when the truth is that that's a boundary thing. Just because, again, like your grandmother used to say, if you jump off a bridge, if your friend jumps off a bridge, are you gonna
You
jump
gonna
off a
do it?
bridge?
Hmm.
Yeah. And it's really the same dynamic, except that kids would turn around and all of a sudden something that's really small becomes,
Really big, yeah.
escalated,
Hmm.
blown up, and now, literally, you're in a situation where you're trying to fix something that honestly, unless you involve the parents, you really have no control over. But even when I talk with the parents, well, I'm gonna do this, and okay, let's do this. Let's really work with them on how to better manage certain things, because really, honestly, sometimes I'll even point out the good things that they're able to do when they're having a tough time, because I never like to call a kid bad, because I think that labels matter,
Hmm.
and and I've had more than my share of kids come up to me, man. When I was little, man, I was real bad. No, you weren't. When you were little, you were exploring your environment.
Or busy. I
Yeah,
like that word,
yeah.
busy.
Oh God, oh God. I mean, helping. And really, I think that the big thing is this, and I know I have to leave, and I'm sorry for taking up the
No, it's
time.
okay.
The funny thing is, it's like, and the importance and the real credit to being able to help a kid understand the mental health part of it and demystifying it is that mental health doesn't mean that somebody's crazy or you went to a crazy house or something like that. It's really about helping you get to a place of balance so you can function, as normally as possible, or whatever your definition of
Of normal
normality
is.
is.
Hmm.
Yeah. So it's not about well, you're seeing a therapist, so you really must be out there. No, it's really, no, I really am trying to figure this out. And now that I get it, fine. So I think one young lady was dealing with some anger issues. And I remember she was talking about a kid, and a kid triggers her, at that time. And she, yeah, he just so bad, this, that, and the other. He turned around. I said, what you mean by bad? He pulling the flower pots down and playing in the dirt. And I tell him no. He looks up to me like, and still playing. I said, okay, all right. So let's do this. All right. So kids respond by how? By touch usually. If you think about, if you're talking about somebody under one, sometimes they'll turn around and put things to their mouth because
Mouth,
it's a
yep.
sensory piece.
Hmm.
Okay, so really, so you think about how dirt feels as a kid. Oh, it's soft, it's cold, it's this, that, and that. It's a different sensation. So when the kids are pulling something down, they're really just exploring their
Learning what it
their
is,
territory.
yep.
Yeah.
That's
So if
them
you
figuring it out for the first time, yep.
and when a parent looks at it like that, when that young lady looked at it like that, the beauty was seeing the light go off or the light come on, like, huh, yeah. So really, then you just have to make some adjustments to your kid exploring, because that's really what you want them to do. You want to be able to help teach them, but you can't help teach them if you're dictating everything, and then those dictations, especially if you really don't understand some of the finer points of really connecting with your child or parenting, it comes across as harsh, disassociative, and then they end up growing up learning that, oh, I really can't say certain things, and then that feeds over into when they get into these, these early adolescent years. And it's
Yeah.
like, okay, how do I really respond to them when it's that I've had a whole lifetime of seen and I heard, boy, you bad, girl, you bad, you fast, you this, that, and the other, blah, 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 blah. Where we're in that moment helping somebody really see how to fix certain things or manage certain things, it's just really a joy to me. So I think that in addition to hearing their voice, demystifying the fact that it's okay to have resources, and supports and stuff like that. It wasn't, and if we're being honest, it wasn't always counseling with us per se, but having that space for somebody to counsel us, or at least be a sounding board to us. Now the only difference is that when we're talking about a mental health situation, it's like, yeah, you definitely want to have people that have some training, or at minimum some empathy for healthy resolution, and harm and harm reduction. So you're not saying, you know what, man, I understand that you're mad, but perhaps you just need to just go and smoke something. And sometimes you just can't do that, And one of the great hip hop artists that passed away, talked about the impact of DMX. That is, talked about the impact of somebody giving him laced marijuana. So at 14,
and a mentor at that.
Yeah,
he was somebody. He was supposed to be his mentor and laced the marijuana, and he's been hooked ever since. I actually saw that interview, and he was crying because he's been dealing with that struggle for so long. And that's the other thing. Sometimes the influences, and a lot of times you can't help it. Parents have people that are around them that they think are helping, and you can't be everywhere and see everything. It's not possible. But sometimes children get caught up in other things because they are trying to maybe connect with someone, or they are saying, hey, I look up to this person. This person says it's okay, so I'm just going to do it, which is really innocent. And then they wind up in a situation like that, which is really unfortunate, because that's a lifetime of struggle and pain that I don't even know. To that one, I wouldn't even know how to navigate that.
It's funny, and probably one of the things, thinking about the time, if somebody has any questions in the thing of of kind of like relating to kids or something like that, or situations that may come up, that is this a mental health issue, because not everything is necessarily direct mental health pieces, but it's just really kind of like being open and available, to help the kid in the moment. But to your point, yeah, a lot of times what happens is that adults sometimes give bad advice. I had okay, so I can't say this one because of confidentiality, but I had a client that got some real bad advice from his dad, and his dad had passed away and stuff like that. And sometimes in the therapy setting, when you develop that trusting relationship, sometimes the person, sees you as more than just a therapist. So they don't necessarily just see you as, because you're a trusted you're a trusted confidant. Man, I could walk up and tell you anything, and there have been some times that, dear Jesus, bro, don't tell me again that you shot somebody, because then there's confidentiality that I cannot keep. I'm still a mandated reporter, but in some instances, a young person, well, in this case, an adult, told me an experience they had, but we touched on it a little bit because it really impacted how he saw young women. And again, and that goes into that whole objectifying type of thing, and I messed with him one day because it's like one of our social workers was passing us as we were about to go into a session, and literally his neck was on a turnstile. It was like, hey, bro, you're about to get ready to go into a session. Hey, man, they therapists work up here like that. And see, there's your thing. And now, of course, when you develop those healthy relationships, you can kind of call somebody out, in a cool way. See, bro, that's why you're in trouble now. Come on in, boy. Get it. And we had this conversation, and I said, and that's probably one of the things that happened. Whatever in this situation, what your dad did, again, it wasn't your dad personally that did it, but what he allowed with the situation was that he allowed you to kind of like, look at women as sex objects. And what happens is that now when you're really trying to relate, and you realize that after the sex is gone, now what you guys gonna talk about. What type of future are you gonna build? If there's a future there. What are your interests? What are your visions? What are your goals? What are your this, that, and the other? Now it becomes difficult because you've never had a friendship relationship with somebody. And for teenagers, even now this week, one of the things that I'm working on is platonic relationships, and
Mm.
being able to be friend, understanding that every time you see a girl don't mean that she's trying to date you, dude. And vice versa. Yeah. And if you are looking at her a certain kind of way or something like that, understand that it's okay to establish the friendship first. But you have to be honest with the reason why you're having a friendship too. Don't establish a friendship like, yeah, low key, I'm gonna get her interested, and then she's thinking that she's going to the show just or going to the mall just kicking it with you, and you sitting up here, putting your arms around and say, no, well, I thought we were friends. So you got to be dead honest, and that keeps a whole lot of the embarrassment, I think, that I saw in one of the comments, down a little bit. So,
Mm-hmm. And that's
um,
funny that you say that, because I was actually having a conversation. I was trying to debate which topic I was going to talk about, but then, I decided to go with this one. But also, like, um, dealing with those relationships, and even telling boys that it's more to their self-esteem than just having sex with a woman. Like, that shouldn't be what you do because it's a self-esteem boost. Like, there should be other things that boost your self-esteem besides getting with someone. So instilling that in boys at a young age, because what I've noticed is not a lot of people that talk to boys um and give them other tools, rather than just telling them, man, get with all of the women, do this and do that. They're not saying your seed is precious, and where you decide to plant that seed is, is very important. So don't
mhm.
put the seed everywhere, that kind of, because you tell girls that keep your legs closed, and all these things, but boys don't have that same conversation. And then they grow up and be men that have issues with having relationships with women because they don't know how to navigate that, because they weren't taught that. They were just taught, man, go out here and date, sleep with as many women as you want to, and as many girls as you want to, and that's what it's about. But even instilling that self-confidence, a lot of boys are not getting that either. They're not getting a
So
confidence lesson like the girls are with, oh, you're beautiful, you're gorgeous, look in the mirror. And, they're saying now we have people that are teaching them affirmations and things like that. Nobody's telling the boys to look in the mirror and say who they are. So I was
and
thinking about that conversation, which I might touch on it maybe next week or the week after, but I think that's very important.
I think to add to that, one of the things that's interesting, especially with that, is that boys, and part of that is that um, I want to say our young ladies, even today, are comfortable. When intimacy with a young lady being intimate is being able to be fully who they are. And even though that's challenged at time. And I think somebody wrote down here, I think Snake wrote down here, with the advent of social media, that challenges a whole lot of stuff, but I think that, still over just in general, I'm able to articulate how I feel. When you do this, I feel this way. Guys are programmed to some degree, because I don't want to make generalizations or stereotypes, but to some degree, talking about your feelings is kind of tough, and what also needs to happen is kind of like demystifying the whole thing of being able to share your feelings. I remember, now I can't share this. I remember the particular neighborhood I worked in on the west side of Chicago, and I was doing a whole lesson on trauma. So it's like, hey, all right, guys. So uh, when, let's say, for instance, your guy got shot, your guy got hurt or whatever have you. So what's the immediate feeling that you have? That would seem like it would be simple, wouldn't it? Man, I'll be upset, I'll be blue or whatever phraseology, you want to do, because the other thing the kids do is they try to find different code words to throw adults off, but that's just the evolution of slang, and that's them. We did it too when we were kids, so yeah, man, it's go time. And one of the guys that had been in the program previously, I kind of looked at him. And I was looking at him like, so I get it. I'm from Inglewood. Yeah, I understand what go time means and stuff like that. Mad respect. However, you just didn't tell me how you felt. You just told me that pretty much it's going to be a fight.
Mm-hmm.
So, and the thing is that when you can identify the feeling, that really makes all the difference, because I can turn around and assume it and get it wrong. So I can assume that because you want to fight that you're angry. You know what? I'm gonna be honest with you. So and I'm not going to even lie. Some of the best fights I had, as a kid fighting, I had it because I wasn't angry. I had it because I was actually sitting up here able to think. So fight, don't be fooled. If I'm fighting you, sometimes I've already made a decision. I'm not mad anymore. Now I'm just releasing. So while you're swinging wildly, I'm already thinking about 3 moves that I'm going to do, and then I'm gonna walk away from the fight. So it's like, so in this particular instance, the kid was like, man, what do you mean? And the other kid said, man, what Mr. Clayton talking about is like, how do you feel? Like, are you mad? Are you pissed? Are you this? Are you that? And then that was just a teachable moment in there. And see, once you can identify the feeling, thinking about the feeling is almost like the root to your soul. If you think about the feeling as the root to your soul, and let's say that root was more like a weed than it was a plant, now you can turn around and pull that weed a little bit, and turn around and kind of cultivate yourself. But if you think about the feelings, if you can't really identify your feelings, then you're really gonna have a tough time. And I think that it is a salient, or it is a lesson that we need to be able to say it's okay to say that I'm sad about something. It is okay to be upset. It is okay to find other ways to express yourself. I had another client that, and he wasn't a client. I'm sorry. I had another student, and he had been molested, and so when I asked that question, and the one thing is that I've learned to be sensitive when I ask certain questions. So it's like, if you don't answer real, like, immediately, because that's what kids talk. Have you ever experienced, has someone ever abused you, whether it's physically, sexually, whatever, blah, 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 blah. And most kids will turn around and say, nope, no. And usually we just keep it moving. But the ones that don't or hesitate, then I'm attuned. Okay, what happened? And it's like, and he couldn't talk. And so in that moment, it's like, would you like a sheet of paper? Yeah. And that helped him express it. And then when I read it, then he broke down. And in that space, I didn't turn around and say, man, you need to go ahead and put your big boy drawers on, and let's get up out of here and do what we need to do. You've already overcome a whole lot of stuff. No, sometimes in those moments, you need to be able to stop, hear what they have to say, and normalize the fact that these are normal feelings to have, and it's okay to have them. And in that moment, because of that, he never ended up getting counseling as a resource, but what he ended up doing was, we also talked about other healthy things that you can do to kind of like help you manage. And he actually took the other things. So it's like, man, I'm gonna get involved in this, I'm gonna do X, Y, and Z. But I told him that, but at some point, you may have to think about being able to address that, because that's a heavier thing, because it could have an impact on other relationships.
That's very true. Oh, you know what? I wasn't even going to go there. I wasn't even going to talk about it. I dealt with that as a kid and again as a teenager. And when I tell you, I did not deal in relationships well. Like, my 18, 19, 20-year-old self was angry all the time. I did not have like relationships with people, real close knit relationships. I wouldn't let people get close to me. I'm better at that now, but then you couldn't even say boo to me. I'm gonna be honest. So navigating that took time. It took me to say, these people are living their life. They're going on about their business, and here I am stuck. honestly, I had started drinking, and I was drinking like crazy when I was in college, because it was just numbing what I was feeling. And
Okay.
honestly, I did not intend for this conversation to go to this, but
Mm-hmm.
since we are, being real and having this conversation, I dealt with a lot of different things internally, and I didn't have anyone to talk to. Um, by that time, my dad had passed. He passed when I was 15. So the first incident actually happened when I was young. And that person was probably in their 50s. And basically told me, if I said anything, I would tell your parents that you were bad. So from there, it shut me up. I stayed quiet, didn't say anything. And then when it happened again, what it did was trigger that old thing. And so it just locked me up inside, right? So
Yeah.
then I became angry, bitter. I was like fighting, like literally in school, like getting into fights, police call, like, and I didn't care. I wasn't scared of anything. I was like a loose cannon. And it just took for me, and I'm gonna say everybody can't do this, but I literally had a come to Jesus meeting with myself, me in a room talking to God, because I was spiraling. Um, and I didn't know like how to navigate it. And that's when, and I don't know who's on here actually believes in God. I don't know, but that's what I believe in. That's who I believe in. That's my source. But having that conversation with God, and he's like, you have to release that. You have to let that go. Because if you keep going this way, you're not going to accomplish the things that you want to accomplish. You're not going to be able to have friends. You're not going to be able to graduate from school. You're going to keep going down this path, and then you're only hurting yourself. Those people have lived their lives, even though it feels unfair to you. They've gone on and lived their lives, and they're not thinking twice about what they did to you.
Exactly.
So you have to make a conscious decision to first forgive, because the forgiveness is for you, not necessarily for them. And
Mm-hmm.
then, move forward in the giftings that I have blessed you with. So from there, I'm not going to say that it was super duper easy to navigate through it, but I understand that everybody's path is different, how everyone deals with it is differently. But for me, that's what it took. And for a long time, it's like every day I had to remind myself to act a certain way, to talk to myself a certain way. I had to talk myself through different situations, allowing people to be, connected to me, because before I was like, I don't need no friends. I don't need nobody. That I was that person, and people were looking at me like, what is wrong with you? But I wouldn't open up and say this. And this is the first time I'm publicly saying this. So,
So it's interesting too because the healing factor that you have, and that's one of the things that that this particular social scientist Winnicott talks about, creating a healing space. And truthfully, some elements of social or mental health, you know, support actually mirrors that of some sources, some elements of spirituality. So if we're talking about, so commonly we would hear in the church, heal and speak over yourself, encourage yourself. Now, if you take the preacher's voice off it, or if we're thinking about DMX, you take DMX's voice off of it. What? Then what you're looking at is positive self-talk. And so what you're doing now is like, who am I not to be great? So it's like I definitely like Aquila and the Bee, that the Marianne Williamson poem, yeah, I can't even think of the name of it at this particular moment. Who am I be not to be great, not to be smart. Anytime you douse your light, you're hiding your glory, your greatness,
mhm,
from the world, and being the kind of like the able to self affirm. So a couple of things that that I also do every once in a while, like I ask, like even when I do my talk circles or groups or something like that, I really want to make sure that the kids are engaged. So hey, listen, give me your most authentic song. That, what gets you kind of charged up? What are those things? Because those are the things that you'll remember. And so I think that one of the things that you're able to do is kind of like once you came to that moment, like you said, that moment of that epiphany. You know, you paid attention to your body, you paid attention to your mind, you paid attention to how how things were going, and you just didn't want to go that way. I would also say that, and this is what the kids need to hear. Now the thing is that how do we get them to hear it? And that's usually the challenge as an adult. How do we get them in the space? Because understand they're not going to turn around and automatically talk about some of the heavier things that they've dealt with. But I know that like when I worked with a group of kids that were foster kids, and we did the subject of forgiveness, and let me tell you, that was a that was a heavy one. Because how are because you're actively talking to kids who are going through life in foster care, when all they really want is a family, and
Yeah.
and it's like, well, how can we really do this and this that, and the other? And it's like, and I think and if I recall, I kind of like took it for you. It's like, it's really the healing for you to kind of make that transition,
Mm-hmm.
and and kind of get and kind of like be able to manage it. But what it ended up doing was that it ended up opening up conversations. And one of my friends, one of my guys, because he's grown now, one of the beauties of that conversation is that it did allow him to turn around and heal certain things with his parents. And unfortunately, her case ended up being a media case. She ended up being murdered. But before it happened, he forged a relationship with her. He rebuilt that relationship, and that was just a beautiful thing to see. And I know that that space came from that conversation that we had, and also being authentic in that moment too. And I think the other thing too is that so we don't always have to look for the deep thing. I think this week one of the things that I did is like we talked about in talking about relationships and stuff like that. I talked about how things influence us. Of course, do kids really want to hear how things influence us? Because that sounds like parent type stuff, right? One of the things that I did was I saw something on TikTok. So I'm real good at borrowing what the world has,
Mm-hmm.
to kind of make sense of things. And some kids, and you have some typical saying, we are farmers, dun, 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 and something like that. It's like, so think about that. So I'm gonna throw out some taglines, and that's what I did. And the kids parroted them back. And then the last tagline I had, I said, and here's the big one that we always have. Your mom or your daddy said, I brought you into this world, and
I'll take you out.
that's and I said, so I said, when you think about it, and again, and the same thing, it's like the kids were laughing, they were engaged and stuff like that. And it's like, and that's kind of like once you get them in a space where they're comfortable enough to engage, now we can turn around and kind of like the
Mm-hmm.
heavy lifting is easy because now we can turn around and kind of like meet them where they are and they can feel comfortable in those spaces. So I think that, when we're doing this, we have to be really intentional about about the importance of having that space for mental health. Also be intentional about, how we share. Not necessarily that you have to share everything, because I will say this every once in a while, we can be transparent as adults. But the other thing is that, especially from my perspective, you definitely don't want something where it's that the kids feel as though they're being counselors to you. And that's not a bad thing. But, but if you overshare, then the next thing you know, it's like, basically, you need a hug. And it's like, man, I thought I was leading this session.
Right.
So it's like so whatever you share, just make sure that it's relevant to what you're trying to accomplish. Not relevant necessarily to the conversation, but relevant to what you're trying to accomplish. And then that will kind of guide you as to, do I share this now, or do I even go that far with it? And that's just one of the things that I've learned to do. And it's also helped people. It's also helped me to be able to share things um, without feeling some regret or something like that. And then also too, and then if you know if it's something that you're really going to share that's going to be heavy, get clearance. I think I was going to share something that my mom experienced, but I asked my mom, hey mom, can I share this? And stuff like that. So to make a point, and we didn't even bring it up, but the key is that make the kids feel comfortable as possible, have
Mm-hmm.
fun with them, and let and be able to get down in the dirt with them. One of the hard lessons I learned is that I've evolved, but I don't dig all the hip hop that everybody listens to nowadays. But I know some of the name, and it's like it's hilarious. Even now, I think I've had more listens and spins of Polo G and NBA YoungBoy than I want to hear, my entire lifetime. But as long as the kids know you ain't judging them on that, so it's like when I send the email back, oh, I don't know if we can play that for the class, because they talking about, being cool and throwing a blunt up to the sky. It's like, and I don't want your parent to walk by a Zoom meeting. It's like, what you listening to? Oh, Mr. Clay let he cool. He let us listen to this all the time. So it's like we can't do that. But at the same time, to understand that, creating that space for them to be their most authentic selves, and sometimes that means that you're going to hear certain things or not necessarily agree, but really understand. I have a an eighth grader now who I think we were talking, and one of the funny things that he did was he kept using the D word, in our conversation. Didn't even realize it because he felt comfortable. So we were talking, we got to some point about dating, long distance relationships, and it's like, and so he was talking about, yeah, so we talk about, so a lot of times, again, it's a listening piece. We think that it's about them being up late at night on the game, stuff like that. No, he's in a long distance relationship. And again, I didn't want to bust any bubbles because it's like, he hasn't physically met her at all. This is like a whole nother coast type of thing. It's like, yeah, we've been dating 9 months. And I'm like, in my mind as an adult, how does that work if you never like even walked with anywhere? On the other hand, it is COVID right now in the pandemic, so it's fine. But instead of busting that bubble, I kind of listened to him and stuff like that. But then at that moment, he was just feeling comfortable. And he was like, man, dude, this man, it's like, no judgment, keep it coming, man. I'm enjoying this conversation. So next week when we talk, let's think about this and woo woo woo.
Mm-hmm.
And just simple stuff. And really what happens is that when it's really good, all you're doing is again dropping bread seeds and crumbs. They're really doing their own self therapy. And
Yeah.
that's the space that you really want a kid to get to. But that space comes with, building that trust, building that rapport, and understanding that there are going to be times that they're going to try you.
Yeah.
There are going to be times, and that part is true regardless of age.
Yeah.
I mean, shoot, I know I had a client as a grown man, and we literally laughed the next week from a session because this dude challenged me, and I knew he was challenging me, and he was like, "Man, but what about this?" And I just turned around like, "Bro, you're challenging me, aren't you?" So, so, so you need to understand. I'm willing to go. Let's do this, And the next week, it's like, how you feeling? He's like, how you feeling, Mr. Clayton? It's like, I'm good. And he was like, man, I'm good. I know. It's like, I said, but that's the whole thing that's beautiful about relationships. They flow like that, man. You're not doing anything any different than a normal relationship
Mm-hmm.
would involve. And once you realize that that's what it is, that sometimes that makes all the difference. And he was actually one of the cases I was able to successfully close too. So but it was a tough case too. But he was able to kind of like be self-aware, do certain things, and it's like, you know what? Right now, if I just keep you another year, I'm keeping you for the money. So
Mm-hmm.
it's like, no. So I think that, so if there's any takeaways or anything like that, and I'll be glad to help, construct some things with you.
Okay.
Um, and I don't know if you're connected to Lorenz or anything like that, but maybe one of these days, I can get we could share information or whatever have you. I'm on IG as well.
Okay.
Um, let's connect and probably like put a plan together. And if you have, and are you in the Chicagoland area?
Yes.
Okay, let's put a plan together and see, if you have a subset of kids that you want to do some stuff with, or as a resource, just to let you know, I think I'm also part of a program called Voices, and that is kind of like your hip hop type of, again, your kind of like hip hop therapy.
Okay.
But at the same time too, they are mad 100. So so if you're one of those people that's really funny about coming in and not hearing cursing, that might not be the group for you.
Gotcha.
But yeah, it may not. But that is one piece that that I offer. And if you have any kids that might be interested in something like that, that might be an avenue or a resource. Because again, if you think about DMX, and I think I heard another hip hop artist too, a lot of times when they're going on stage and doing their music, a lot of times it's not for likes. A lot of times it's therapeutic for them.
Mm-hmm.
And for DMX, definitely it was therapeutic for him. I think I was watching something with Dave Chappelle actually earlier, and he was laughing about when Dave Chappelle had his show on Comedy Central,
Mm-hmm.
and he happened to be saying, he had said something about DMX came on, and DMX gave him a concert. He didn't really give him a concert. What it is that DMX, this music means something to him, and he gets a chance to be another level, of who he is, of another level of authenticity, but at the same time, another level of healing,
Yeah.
and this is what we want to be able to do. It's like have these kids come into these spaces and look at it just as healing for themselves. And as long as they're able to do that, they should be straight. So I'm sorry I'll talk all of this.
No, this was really good. Like, this was a real good conversation. I wasn't even expecting all of this to happen this way. But this was really good. So yeah, let's, connect, and I'll be interested to do like a team forum. I think it's really important, especially with everything going on. Some things can be prevented. I think you can't prevent everything, but at least, give them just an outlet, a resource, tools, and things like that, so that they won't wind up in some of the situations maybe we winded up in, or worse. So I would like to do that.
Sounds good. So I'll check in with. Hold on, let me write this down. Hold on 1 second here. Tiana.
Yeah. Or you can just because Lorenz has my information, so you can get, if you want to message me, that's fine, and we can swap information, or you can go through Lorenz if you want to.
That's cool.
But
no, that's fine. I can go through Lorenz, and what I'll do also too, if there's additional resources or additional supports, I can also look at that as well. Just
okay.
to every once in a while connect in, because I think it'll be good. And probably the one thing I will say, especially those that have experienced the other type of abuse from an adult or whatever have you, understanding that in those spaces it's never your fault, and I think that that's just one of the realities too. So it's like, I did, no, you didn't,
No, what? And that was something that I struggled with the longest. I think that the self-blaming is the more tedious part of the healing process, right? Because you are like, well, what did I do? Maybe if I had done this differently, maybe if, whatever. And it's like you're steady going over and replaying the situation as if it was your fault, or as if it was something that could have been done differently. Yeah, I can, I could have a whole conversation about that. And that was something that I had thought about doing even with girls, which I might do it on this platform, not quite sure yet. But I was also thinking about having those conversations, because a lot of African American women have gone through that, and the numbers are pretty alarming, and don't say anything. And, a lot of them I looked at as angry Black women, but they've been through some really traumatic situations that no one helped them to navigate through. If it was sexual abuse, if it was physical abuse, if it was drugs, get hooking up with the wrong men and they put them in compromising situations, just different things. And then not having a father in the home is really big. A lot of girls look for that validation from their father, and they're not receiving that. So then they go out and get with men, and these men are not looking out for their best interests, and these girls don't even know what the first thing to look for in a man. So
exactly.
then have all this tension and this built up anger, and it carries into their adult life. Now they're parents and they're still dealing with these same issues. And the same could be said for boys. Boys don't articulate what they feel because they're taught not to, but it's the same thing. And they grow up to be men and they have anger issues and they hate women and they hate, everybody. And it's just, we really need to have these conversations. And I feel like this is somewhat therapeutic, but also I feel like it can reach a lot of people just by having an open forum to have this conversation, because a lot of stuff is not being talked about. As African American people, we have been taught to sweep things under the rug, to not talk about like therapy. That was always looked and frowned upon, like you were saying earlier. That's not something that, is a positive thing. People think it's like you got to be crazy, but it is necessary. And there are different types of therapies. And so all of this different stuff needs to be, talked about. So
Yeah. So you're not, and also too, so you're not ascribing yourself diagnosis that you don't have the slightest clue. Man, I'm angry because I'm bipolar. No, okay, stop. It doesn't always manifest that way. So don't get me wrong. Yes, it can be very manic episodes, but it's like, no, you're probably angry because you're angry. Now, how about this? You're angry, you deface the building, and you won't listen to rules. Then no, you might be more oppositional defiant. How's that? Or if nobody can tell you nothing, you might have more cognitive issues.
mm-hmm.
So it's like just even doing it where you're not weaponizing what we do or how people need to heal. I think that's also vital too. So, but that said, yeah, let's connect. I will talk with Lorenz. I think we're supposed to get together sometime this weekend or something like that. So let's figure out something. And if nothing else, maybe we could just strategize on, and it doesn't have to like be a huge group. Only thing you need is really 3 to 5 people committed, and we just build from there,
Yeah.
and understanding that the goals are just really not anything, hard or anything like that. Just make it like, what, if they can walk away with something like, I was able to heal myself, I've learned how to communicate better with this, that, and the other. That'd be great, and then once we do that, then let them know that, hey man, I was in this program, it was actually kind of cool. Now you just kind of made it easier for somebody to be able to go into a situation and talk about it,
Yeah.
so, but nonetheless, it was a pleasure talking with you,
Same here.
and you have a great evening.
You too.
All right, bye-bye.
Bye. All right, guys. So that was a very, very good conversation, necessary. Um, like I was saying, therapeutic, but um, the goal of this conversation and having these conversations is to help us and teenagers to navigate certain situations, and for us to just talk about certain things, get it out in the open, so that we're not still dealing with these issues or trauma or just different situations one alone. And um, being able to know that there are resources out there and utilize those resources. So with that, I am Tiana Nichelle, and I am going to be having these lives every Wednesday at 7. Sometimes we will have, different people that come on and just share their experiences. You all are welcome to do so. You all are welcome to, if you want your kids to watch it or even to participate, hey, that is very fine too. But without further, I'm gone. You all have a great night. Thank you for watching. Bye.